Hi, Talya here from Savannah Therapeutic Stories, and today I'm going to read you our very new book from Savannah Therapeutic Stories called Here We Go Again, A Story About Bullying, written by Dr. Gail Sinitsky and co-authored by me and illustrated by the talented Paul Banks. It was another busy day at Bushlands Primary School on the Savannah. The animals were talking and laughing with their friends as they flooded through the school gates excitedly and entered their classrooms. Peter the panther, Hetty the hedgehog, Silo the lion cub and Jerry the giraffe were the best of friends, and they felt so lucky to be in the same class. As they walked in, heads down, deep in conversation, Robbie the meerkat pushed past Peter, causing him to drop his lunch. Peter looked up as he collected his lunch from the floor and saw Robbie giggle with his friend Margot the rhino. Peter held back his tears and thought to himself, "Oh no, here we go again," as he remembered the other times that Robbie had been unkind to him. Later that same day at lunchtime, the little ones were playing their favourite game of football, cheering each other on. Suddenly, the game sped up. Peter had the ball and was just about to deliver his super skillful kick when Robbie stuck his foot out purposefully and tripped him up. With a big crash, Peter fell to the floor. Feeling dazed and hurt, he looked up just as his friends rushed over to check he was okay. In the distance, he spotted Robbie and Margot fleeing to the other side of the playground in fits of laughter. That night, Peter felt sad. He told his mum he had a tummy ache and wasn't hungry, and he went to bed early. Tucked beneath his duvet, he thought back on the day with silent tears rolling down his cheeks. He didn't want his mum to know he was upset. He just wished Robbie would stop. The following day dawned bright and sunny. Dragging his feet, Peter made his way to school, excited to see his friends, but scared about what Robbie would do next. As he walked through the school gates, he heard Robbie behind him, so he quickened his pace to join Silo. Later, in their maths lesson, the teacher announced, "We will be having a surprise maths quiz." Robbie giggled and leant forward to whisper in Peter's ear, "You're so stupid. You won't even get one right." Peter turned around and wanted to shout, "Stop it!" But he felt himself shrinking back into his chair when Robbie stared him straight in the eye. Hetty the hedgehog had overheard Robbie's unkind words. She was shocked and shouted, "Robbie, that's mean." Robbie gulped and looked embarrassed. After school, when the friends were walking home together, Hetty pulled Peter back and asked him, "Peter, what's going on with Robbie?" Peter let a tear fall. Although he hadn't planned to tell her, it all came gushing out. He told Hetty how Robbie had been unkind to him for weeks. Hetty was very sad to hear this and reached out to comfort Peter. She rested her paw gently on his shoulder and said, "Oh, how rude of him. That is bullying, and it is so unfair. Have you told anyone about this?" Peter shook his head sadly and said, "No, nobody. You're the only one I've told." Hetty thought about this for a moment and in a strong voice said, "I know what we need to do. We need to see Elle." Now, Elle was the wise elephant of the savannah, who was always there to talk to the little ones. Every week she would come into school to talk with them about anything they were worried about. Hetty knew that Elle could help Peter, but Peter was worried. He looked at Hetty with big eyes and pleaded, "No, please. You can't tell anyone. If Robbie finds out I've told anyone, he will tease me more." Hetty replied, But if you don't tell anyone, it might keep on happening. And just look how bad you feel already. With Hetty's help, Peter realised that he must speak to Elle. Otherwise, Robbie might not stop. The next day at lunchtime, Hetty and Peter found Elle and asked if they could talk to her. Of course, little one, she said in her kind and soft voice. Let's go and find a quiet place. They walked to the far end of the playground and sat together under the shade of the big baobab tree. Gently, Hetty encouraged Peter to tell Elle what had been happening with Robbie. Peter spoke about the bullying with tears rolling down his face. Elle listened carefully and nodded in encouragement until he had finished. Oh, Peter, this is very hurtful, said Elle. It sounds like Robbie is bullying you. Really? Is it really bullying? Exclaimed Peter. Elle carried on and said, yes. Did you know that bullying is when someone does something intentionally to hurt you? It might be saying unkind things or even physically hurting you, like when Robbie tripped you up. It usually happens more than once and, oh, well, this has been happening to poor Peter for weeks, Hetty interrupted. Elle, Peter and Hetty chatted together for some time, and after a while Peter let out a huge sigh of relief. I'm so glad I've told you, but what do we do now to stop it? Gently Elle said, I'm so glad you've told me. Hetty, you were a really good friend to Peter by encouraging him to do so. Hetty and Peter smiled at each other and then Elle continued. You know, sometimes when someone is having a tough time or feeling bad about themselves, they can end up being unkind to others. That's not okay. So you've done the right thing by telling a grown-up, because now we can work out why this is happening and what to do next to help you. Elle, Peter and Hetty set to work thinking through all the different things that might help Peter, including a plan to talk to his teacher. That night, Peter told his mum everything that had been happening. His mum gave him a big hug and said, I'm so pleased that you told me. Well, Peter admitted, I was afraid to tell anyone, but Hetty helped me to talk to Elle. We've come up with some ideas and my teacher's going to call you. Peter's mum smiled and hugged him tightly again and said, Peter, I'm so proud of you. Asking for help is a very brave thing to do. That night, after a big dinner, Peter fell asleep warm beneath his duvet, feeling calm, knowing that the adults around him were going to help. I hope that you have enjoyed listening to our story about Here We Go Again, a story about bullying. And if you are ever bullied, please speak to a trusted grown-up around you. And please, thank you for supporting Roundabout, who are an amazing charity who do so much good work. Take care and have a lovely festive season.